I missed my bus, Marcus admitted, his voice tight. And I have a final exam at 8:30. Oh my, Dr. Walker's eyes widened. Because you were helping me? That's terrible. What would you do if helping a stranger meant potentially losing everything you've worked for? When brilliant scholarship student Marcus Washington stops to assist a frail elderly woman on exam day, he has no idea she's actually Dr. Eleanor Walker, the incoming principal who will change his life forever. Facing a racist teacher determined to see him fail, Marcus must make a heart-wrenching choice between kindness and self-preservation. Will his compassion cost him his future, or reveal something far more valuable than a perfect grade? Don't miss this powerful story that will leave you questioning what truly matters. Dear viewer, if you are watching my story for the first time, I humbly request you write the location from where you are watching right now, subscribe this channel and press the bell icon now not to miss the notifications of my daily published new stories. Thank you, and let's dive into the full story. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Marcus Washington shifted uncomfortably from one foot to another at the back of Ms. Reynolds' advanced placement literature class. His tall, lean frame cast a shadow across his notebook as he attempted to take notes while standing. Mr. Washington, Ms. Reynolds' sharp voice cut through the classroom. Is there a reason you refuse to take your seat like everyone else? Marcus looked up, his dark eyes meeting hers. Ms. Reynolds, I explained last week that I have back pain. I'd prefer to stand if that's all right. The classroom fell silent. Everyone knew what had happened last month. Ms. Reynolds had ordered Marcus to leave her classroom for disrespectful posture when he'd slouched due to his back pain. When he tried to explain, she'd grabbed his arm and pushed him toward the door. He'd fallen against a desk corner, bruising his lower back severely. I don't recall giving permission for special treatment in my classroom, Ms. Reynolds said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. The school provided these chairs at great expense. I suggest you use them. Ms. Reynolds, I have a doctor's note, Marcus began. Enough. Ms. Reynolds slammed her book on the desk. Either sit down or leave my classroom. Your choice, Mr. Washington. Marcus felt his face grow hot as 27 pairs of eyes focused on him. His scholarship to Westridge Academy had been his mother's pride, a prestigious private school that would be his ticket to college. He couldn't afford to be kicked out again. With all due respect, ma'am, I can't sit comfortably today. His voice remained steady despite his racing heart. Ms. Reynolds' mouth tightened into a thin line. Then you can stand in the hallway. This disruption ends now. As Marcus gathered his books, Thomas Williams, star quarterback and Ms. Reynolds' favorite student, snickered. Maybe if you weren't so lazy, your back wouldn't hurt from all that slouching. Laughter rippled through the classroom as Marcus walked toward the door, his dignity intact but his spirit bruised. And Mr. Washington, Ms. Reynolds called after him, this will be reflected in your participation grade, which accounts for 30% of your final mark. Something to consider with finals approaching. In the empty hallway, Marcus leaned against the cold lockers, closing his eyes. The pain in his back was nothing compared to the sting of humiliation. He pulled out his phone to text his mother that he might be coming home with another failing grade despite having the highest test scores in the class. God give me strength, he whispered, as he had so many times before in this school where he excelled academically but remained an outsider, the scholarship kid from the wrong side of town who didn't belong among Westridge Academy's elite. She did what? Gloria Washington's voice rose as she set down the plate of reheated lasagna in front of Marcus. Their small kitchen, with its yellow curtains and faded linoleum, felt like a sanctuary after the sterile hallways of Westridge Academy. It's not a big deal, Ma, Marcus said, though they both knew it was. I'll just try to sit next time, no matter how much it hurts. Gloria sat down across from her son, her nurse's scrub still on after her double shift. No, you will not. That woman put her hands on you once and caused that injury. And now she's punishing you for it. She shook her head, her braids swinging. I didn't raise you to accept injustice, even from teachers. Marcus picked at his food. What choice do I have? Dean Wilson already warned me about causing disruptions. One more incident and they could revoke my scholarship. That scholarship was earned with your brains, not given as charity, Gloria reminded him. You have a 4.2 GPA in a school full of kids with private tutors and parents who donate buildings. A knock at the door interrupted them. Jamal, Marcus's best friend since elementary school, stepped into the kitchen without waiting for an answer. Heard about what happened with the Reynolds witch, Jamal said, grabbing a chair. The whole school's talking about it. Marcus groaned. Great. No, man, people are on your side this time. Even Zoe Chen spoke up after you left, told Reynolds that she was being unfair. Gloria raised an eyebrow. Zoe Chen. The principal's daughter. The very same, Jamal grinned. Seems like you've got allies in high places. Marcus shook his head. Doesn't matter. Reynolds has been trying to prove I don't belong at Westridge since day one. Now she has ammunition. After dinner, Marcus retreated to his room, spreading his books across his bed to study. His walls were covered with academic awards and acceptance letters from summer programs he couldn't afford to attend. A single MIT pennant hung above his desk, his dream school. His phone buzzed with a text from Jamal, study group tomorrow. Library after school. Half the class is failing Reynolds' mock exams. Despite everything, Marcus smiled. Teaching came naturally to him, and helping others helped him process the material even better. I'll be there, he texted back. Later, as Marcus lay awake, his back throbbing, he heard his mother on the phone in the living room. Yes, I understand the school's policy, Gloria was saying, her voice strained. But my son has a medical condition caused by one of your teachers. No, I don't want to file a formal complaint. That would only make things worse for him. All I'm asking is for some basic accommodation. Marcus stared at the ceiling, determination hardening inside him. He wouldn't let Ms. Reynolds win. He wouldn't give her the satisfaction of seeing him fail. With finals approaching, he would prove once and for all that he belonged at Westridge Academy, no matter what obstacles she put in his way. Tomorrow would be a new day. And Marcus Washington never backed down from a challenge. The administrative offices of Westridge Academy exuded wealth and tradition. Mahogany paneling lined the walls, adorned with portraits of distinguished alumni and former headmasters, none of whom looked like Marcus. Mr. Washington, please take a seat, Dean Wilson gestured to the leather chair across from his imposing desk. Unlike Ms. Reynolds, his tone held no malice, only weary professionalism. Marcus sat carefully, wincing slightly as his back protested. I've reviewed the incident report from yesterday, Dean Wilson began, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Ms. Reynolds indicates this is becoming a pattern of defiance. Sir, I wasn't being defiant, Marcus explained. I have a medical note about my back injury. Standing helps manage the pain. The dean sighed. Marcus, you're one of our brightest students. Your test scores are exceptional. But Westridge isn't just about academics, it's about learning to function within established structures. Marcus bit back the response that threatened to escape, that those established structures seemed designed to exclude students like him. With finals approaching, I need to be clear, Dean Wilson continued. Your scholarship requires full participation in all classes. Missing the final exam for any reason other than documented illness would mean automatic failure. Given your situation with Ms. Reynolds, that would bring your grade below the scholarship requirement threshold. The implication was clear, one more incident and everything Marcus had worked for would disappear. I understand, sir, Marcus said quietly. Good. Dean Wilson's expression softened slightly. For what it's worth, the board is implementing some changes next semester. We're bringing in a new principal with extensive experience in educational equity. Dr. Eleanor Walker, perhaps you've heard of her work. Marcus nodded. Dr. Walker was legendary in education circles for transforming struggling schools into centers of excellence. I've read some of her research papers. Dean Wilson looked surprised. Well, I'm sure things will improve once she takes the helm. Until then. He cleared his throat. Just keep your head down these last few weeks. As Marcus left the office, he nearly collided with Ms. Reynolds in the hallway. "Mr. Washington," she said coolly. "I trust Dean Wilson made the situation clear." "Crystal clear, Ms. Reynolds." Her thin lips curled into what might generously be called a smile. "Excellent. I'm administering the final exam personally next Friday. I do hope your physical ailments won't prevent you from attending. It would be a shame to see such potential wasted." Marcus held her gaze. "I'll be there, Ms. Reynolds." As she walked away, Marcus overheard her speaking to another teacher. "These scholarship cases always implode eventually. They simply aren't prepared for the rigor of a school like Westridge." That afternoon, in the library, Marcus found himself surrounded by classmates eagerly seeking his help. "I don't get how you understand this stuff so easily," complained Thomas Williams, the same boy who had mocked him the day before. "Reynolds makes everything so complicated." "It's not complicated," Marcus explained patiently. "Look at this passage from Invisible Man, what Ellison is saying about identity and visibility." As Marcus guided his classmates through the material, Jamal nudged him. "You know what's ironic? You're teaching the material better than Reynolds, and she's trying to fail you." "Not if I ace her final," Marcus replied, determination in his voice. "I've worked too hard to let her take this from me." After the study session, Marcus checked his phone to find 3 missed calls from his mother. His heart raced as he called her back. "Ma. Everything okay?" "Just wanted to let you know I picked up an extra night shift," Gloria said, her voice tired. "There's money for pizza on the counter." "You're working too much, Ma. We need the extra money for your MIT application fees," she said simply. "Besides, I heard the school board is bringing in someone new who might change things for the better." "Yeah," Marcus said, thinking of his conversation with Dean Wilson. "But that won't happen until after finals." "Then you just focus on passing that exam," Gloria said firmly. "Don't give Reynolds any excuse. You hear me?" "I hear you, Ma," Marcus promised. "Nothing is going to stop me from being in that exam room on Friday." As he hung up, Marcus had no way of knowing how that promise would be tested, or how the simple act of compassion would change the course of his future at Westridge Academy forever. The school library hummed with hushed voices as Marcus organized his study group. What had started with just Jamal had grown to include 15 students, all anxious about Ms. Reynolds' notoriously difficult final exam. "Okay, everyone," Marcus said, spreading his meticulously organized notes across the table. "We have 1 week until the final. If we break down the material by themes rather than chronologically, it'll be easier to connect the texts." Zoe Chen, whose father was the outgoing principal, raised her hand. "Marcus, I heard Reynolds plans to focus heavily on symbolism in post-colonial literature. That's not even in the official study guide." Marcus nodded. "I suspected as much. That's why I prepared these supplementary notes." He passed around photocopied sheets with his handwriting filling every margin. "Pay special attention to the power dynamics in Achebe's work compared to Conrad's." Thomas Williams, who'd been quiet since arriving, finally spoke up. "Why are you helping us? Especially me, after what I said in class." The group fell silent. Marcus continued organizing his notes before answering. "Because that's what my mother taught me," he said simply. "Knowledge isn't meant to be hoarded. Besides, I learn better when I teach others." For the next 2 hours, Marcus guided the group through complex literary analyses, historical contexts, and potential essay questions. His teaching style was patient yet incisive, drawing connections that Ms. Reynolds had never bothered to explain. "Damn," whispered Jamal to Zoe. "He should be teaching this class, not taking it." As the session wound down, students thanked Marcus profusely, some offering to buy him coffee or lunch as thanks. "Just aced the exam," Marcus replied with a smile. "That's thanks enough." After everyone left, Jamal stayed behind, watching Marcus carefully pack his books. "You know," Jamal said, "you're killing yourself for an exam that Reynolds is probably going to find a way to fail you on anyway." Marcus sipped his backpack. Then I'll just have to be so perfect she can't justify it. And you're back. You planning to stand through a 3-hour exam? Marcus winced. I'll manage. Maybe take some pain relievers beforehand. As they walked toward the bus stop, Marcus spotted a notice on the bulletin board about MIT's summer engineering program. His eyes lingered on it briefly before he kept walking. You should apply, Jamal nudged him. You know you'd get in. Application fee is $150, Marcus replied. Plus travel and housing. Not happening. Scholarships are competitive and not guaranteed, Marcus finished. I can't ask Ma for that kind of money when she's working double shifts just to keep our lights on. The evening bus was nearly empty as they boarded. Marcus sat carefully, finding a position that didn't aggravate his injury. You ever wonder what it would be like? Jamal asked suddenly. To not have to fight for every single opportunity. To just belong somewhere without having to prove yourself worthy every day. Marcus stared out the window at the manicured lawns of a neighborhood surrounding Westridge Academy, so different from their own. Sometimes, he admitted. But then I remember what Ma always says, what comes easy won't last, and what lasts won't come easy. The bus turned a corner, and Westridge Academy disappeared from view, but its shadow followed Marcus home. Dawn broke over Marcus's neighborhood, sunlight filtering through the thin curtains of the Washington home. Marcus was already awake, reviewing flashcards at the kitchen table while his mother prepared for work. You're up early, Gloria noted, pouring coffee into her travel mug. Nervous about tomorrow? Prepared, not nervous, Marcus corrected, though the slight tremor in his hands betrayed him. Just want to make sure everything sticks. Gloria studied her son, pride and concern warring in her expression. I spoke to Mrs. Diaz next door. She's going to look in on you this evening since I'll be working late again. Ma, I'm 18. I don't need a babysitter. It's not about babysitting. It's about making sure you eat something besides ramen and actually sleep instead of studying all night. She placed a brown paper bag in front of him. Lunch. And I put extra ibuprofen in the side pocket for your back. Marcus tried to protest, but Gloria held up her hand. No arguments. Tomorrow's too important. After she left, Marcus continued studying until it was time for school. The day passed in a blur of last-minute review sessions and nervous chatter among students. Ms. Reynolds was conspicuously absent, reportedly preparing the exam that would determine so many futures. By afternoon, Marcus's back was throbbing despite the medication. As he walked home, he stopped at the community center where he volunteered on weekends, helping younger kids with homework. Mr. Johnson, the elderly director, waved him over. Marcus. Just the man I needed. The computer system crashed again, and we've got 20 kids coming in an hour. Despite his fatigue, Marcus spent 40 minutes reinstalling drivers and recovering files, ensuring the after-school program could continue without disruption. You're a lifesaver, Mr. Johnson said gratefully. Isn't your big exam tomorrow? You should be home resting. It's fine. Just a few minutes out of my day. Mr. Johnson shook his head. Always helping everyone else. One day, someone's going to be there for you when you need it most. That's how the universe works. Marcus smiled politely, though experience had taught him the universe rarely worked that way for people like him. At home, Marcus set 3 separate alarms on his phone for the morning. He couldn't risk oversleeping. His mother had left a note on the refrigerator, early breakfast in microwave. Set multiple alarms. Love you, Ma. He smiled at her all-caps reminder, so typical of her loving concern. As evening fell, Mrs. Diaz brought over a homemade dinner, clucking disapprovingly at how thin he looked. You study too much and eat too little. No wonder your back hurts. After she left, Marcus laid out his clothes for the next day, his one good shirt, freshly ironed, and the khaki pants his mother had splurged on for special occasions. Everything had to be perfect tomorrow. No excuses, no mistakes. He checked his bus schedule one final time. The 7:15 a.m. bus would get him to school by 8 o'clock, giving him 30 minutes before the 8:30 exam. Plenty of time, even accounting for potential delays. As Marcus finally closed his books and prepared for bed, he felt a curious mix of dread and determination. Tomorrow would define so much: his grades, his scholarship, his future at MIT. Everything he and his mother had sacrificed for. "Nothing's going to stop me from making that exam," he whispered to himself as he drifted off to sleep, unaware of how the universe had other plans entirely. The morning dawned clear and bright. Marcus's alarms blared in succession, though he was already awake, having slept fitfully. His back felt marginally better after a night's rest, and the ibuprofen he took with breakfast dulled the remaining pain to a manageable ache. Dressed in his carefully selected outfit, backpack containing extra pens and pencils, Marcus left home 15 minutes earlier than necessary. He couldn't risk anything going wrong today. The bus stop was 3 blocks away. As Marcus walked briskly down the street, mentally reviewing key literary themes, he noticed an elderly woman struggling with several grocery bags at the corner. She was small, perhaps 5 feet tall, with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses that kept sliding down her nose. Though neatly dressed in a simple blue dress and cardigan, something about her seemed fragile, almost disoriented. Marcus checked his watch. 7:05 a.m. He had plenty of time until the 7:15 bus. He approached the woman. "Excuse me, ma'am. Would you like some help with those bags?" The woman looked up, startled. Deep lines crinkled around keen hazel eyes as she assessed him. "Oh, that's very kind of you, young man," she said, her voice surprisingly strong despite her frail appearance. "I'm afraid I've overestimated my carrying capacity." Marcus took the heaviest bags, noticing they contained books rather than groceries. "Are you heading far?" "Just to my apartment." "It's..." She paused, looking around with a slight frown. "Well, I've only recently moved here. Everything looks different in the morning light." A flicker of concern crossed Marcus's mind. Was she confused? He checked his watch again. 7:08 a.m. "I can help you get there safely. Which direction is your place?" She gestured vaguely uphill. "That way, I believe. Near the park with the red benches." Marcus knew the park. It was a 10-minute walk, in the opposite direction from his bus stop. He shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, I'd be happy to help, but I have an important exam this morning. Maybe I could call someone for you." The woman's face fell slightly. "Of course, you have your own responsibilities. Don't worry about me. I'll manage." As she attempted to take back the heavy bags, her glasses slipped completely off, clattering to the sidewalk. When she bent to retrieve them, she wobbled precariously. Marcus instinctively steadied her with his free hand. "Careful." "Oh dear," she murmured, suddenly looking lost. "I seem to be more disoriented than I thought. Perhaps I took a wrong turn earlier." Marcus felt torn. The woman clearly needed help, but his exam, his future, hung in the balance. He checked his watch again. 7:12 a.m. "Tell you what," he decided. "Let me walk you to that park. Maybe you'll recognize your building from there. I can still make my bus if we hurry." Relief washed over the woman's face. "That's tremendously kind. I'm Dr. Walker, by the way." "Marcus Washington," he replied automatically, adjusting the bags to distribute the weight away from his sensitive back. As they walked, Dr. Walker asked questions about Marcus, his studies, his interests, his family. Despite his anxiety about the time, Marcus found himself answering honestly, even mentioning his scholarship at Westridge Academy. "Westridge. What a coincidence," Dr. Walker exclaimed. "I've heard it's an excellent school." "It is," Marcus agreed. "Though not always welcoming to everyone." Dr. Walker gave him a sharp look. "What do you mean by that?" Before Marcus could answer, they reached the park. The red benches came into view, but Dr. Walker still seemed uncertain about which building was hers. Marcus glanced at his watch, alarm surging through him. 7:23 a.m. His bus had already departed. "I think my building is across the park," Dr. Walker said, pointing to a complex of upscale apartments. "Yes, I recognize that blue awning." Marcus stood frozen, calculating rapidly. If he ran, which his back wouldn't allow, could he make it to school in time? Even if he called a rideshare, morning traffic would make it impossible to arrive before 8:30. Dr. Walker must have noticed his distress. "Is something wrong, young man?" "I missed my bus," Marcus admitted, his voice tight. "And I have a final exam at 8:30. "Oh my," Dr. Walker's eyes widened. "Because you were helping me? That's terrible. Perhaps I can help somehow." Marcus squared his shoulders, making his decision. He couldn't leave an elderly, confused woman alone, even with his future hanging in the balance. "Let's get you home safely first," he said, gesturing to the apartment building. "Then I'll figure something out." As they crossed the park, Marcus tried to ignore the sinking feeling in his stomach. Ms. Reynolds would never accept a missed bus as an excuse. The final exam that would determine everything now seemed impossibly out of reach, all because he'd stopped to help a stranger. "Young man, I cannot express how sorry I am," Dr. Walker said as they reached the apartment complex. Her voice carried genuine distress. "To think you might miss such an important exam because of me." Marcus kept his expression neutral despite the storm raging inside him. "It's all right, Dr. Walker. Let's just get you to your door safely." As they entered the lobby, a doorman looked up with surprise. "Dr. Walker. We were wondering where you'd gone this morning. Your driver has been waiting." Dr. Walker blinked. "My driver? Oh dear, I completely forgot. I wanted to explore the neighborhood and pick up some books." She turned to Marcus. "This kind young man has been helping me find my way back." The doorman nodded appreciatively at Marcus. "Thank you, sir. I can take it from here." "Actually," Dr. Walker interjected, "is my car still waiting? This student has an urgent exam to get to." Hope flickered in Marcus's chest, but quickly died as the doorman shook his head. "I'm afraid Mr. Daniels left for another appointment. He's scheduled to return at noon." Marcus checked his watch again. 7:35 a.m. Even with perfect traffic conditions, reaching Westridge Academy in time seemed impossible. "I should go," he said, carefully setting Dr. Walker's bags on a nearby bench. "Maybe I can still find another way." Dr. Walker placed a gentle hand on his arm. "What school did you say you attend?" "Westridge Academy." Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, perhaps even amusement, but it vanished so quickly Marcus thought he might have imagined it. "Let me at least call you a taxi," she offered, reaching into her purse. "Thank you, but even a taxi won't get me there in time with morning traffic," Marcus replied. "I'll figure something out." As he turned to leave, Dr. Walker asked suddenly, "This exam, it's important to you, isn't it? More than just a grade?" Marcus paused. "It's everything. My scholarship depends on it. My future. And yet you stopped to help me," she said softly. "Knowing you might be late." Marcus shrugged, uncomfortable with her scrutiny. Anyone would have done the same. Dr. Walker's expression suggested she didn't believe that. "What class is this exam for?" "AP Literature with Ms. Reynolds." A curious look crossed Dr. Walker's face. "I see. And what college are you hoping to attend with this scholarship?" "MIT," Marcus answered, wondering why he was still standing there answering questions when he should be finding transportation. "Engineering program." Dr. Walker nodded thoughtfully. "Well, Marcus Washington, I believe things happen for a reason. Perhaps this morning's detour will prove more valuable than you currently realize. With all due respect, Dr. Walker, missing this exam means failing the class. There's no silver lining to that." "Perhaps," she conceded. "But I have a feeling about you, young man. Don't give up just yet." With one last glance at his watch, 7:42 a.m. now, Marcus thanked her and hurried out of the building. Once outside, he assessed his options. He could call his mother, but she was already at work. Jamal didn't have a car. A rideshare would be expensive and still likely too slow. Marcus felt a heaviness settle in his chest as he realized the inevitable: he was going to miss the exam. Everything he'd worked for, everything his mother had sacrificed for, might be lost because he'd chosen to help someone in need. As he stood there, a city bus rumbled to a stop nearby. Its destination sign read, "Downtown Express." Without hesitation, Marcus sprinted to catch it, ignoring the protest from his injured back. The downtown route would get him closer to Westridge, though still not close enough. Transfer to the 42 at Central Station, the bus driver advised when Marcus explained his destination. But even then, you're cutting it real close, son. Marcus slumped into a seat, mentally calculating times and distances. Best case scenario, he might arrive by 8:45 a.m., 15 minutes late. Would Ms. Reynolds even let him take the exam then? Given their history, it seemed unlikely. As the bus wound through increasingly congested streets, Marcus thought about Dr. Walker's parting words. Things happen for a reason. What possible reason could there be for this disaster? His phone buzzed with a text from Jamal. "Where are you?" "Reynolds is already setting up the exam room." Marcus typed back a brief explanation, ending with, "Tell her I'm coming. I'll be late but I'm coming." Jamal's response was immediate. "She says if you're not here by 8:30 sharp, you're disqualified. No exceptions." Marcus closed his eyes, fighting back the burning sensation behind them. He wouldn't cry. Not here, not now. Another text came through, this one from his mother. "Good luck today. You've worked so hard. Proud of you no matter what." Red heart, that nearly broke him. Gloria Washington had no idea her son was currently on a city bus, watching his future slip away because he'd stopped to help a confused elderly woman find her way home. The bus lurched to a stop in heavy traffic. Marcus looked out the window at the gridlocked intersection and knew, with absolute certainty, that he wouldn't make it in time. The exam room at Westridge Academy was silent except for the scratching of pencils and occasional rustle of paper. Ms. Reynolds paced between the rows, her heels clicking rhythmically on the polished floor as she surveyed the students hunched over their blue examination booklets. Jamal kept glancing at the empty desk beside him where Marcus should have been sitting. The clock on the wall read 8:45 a.m., the exam had been underway for 15 minutes, and still no sign of his friend. Ms. Reynolds paused beside Marcus's vacant seat, her lips curving into a satisfied smile. "It seems Mr. Washington has decided his presence isn't required today," she remarked, loud enough for nearby students to hear. A pity, after all his posturing about academic excellence. Jamal gripped his pencil tighter. "He's coming. He texted me. No talking during the examination, Mr. Carter," Ms. Reynolds snapped. "And Mr. Washington's absence speaks for itself. Actions have consequences, as I've always maintained." Several students exchanged uncomfortable glances. Everyone knew about the tension between Ms. Reynolds and Marcus, how she seemed determined to prove he didn't belong at Westridge despite his stellar academic record. At the back of the room, Zoe Chen raised her hand. "Ms. Reynolds, the school policy allows for—" "I'm quite familiar with school policy, Miss Chen," Ms. Reynolds interrupted coldly. "The rules for this examination were clearly stated, 8:30 a.m. sharp, no exceptions. Now please return to your work." As the minutes ticked by, the atmosphere in the room grew increasingly tense. Some students whispered when Ms. Reynolds stepped out briefly, wondering what had happened to Marcus, the student who had spent hours helping them prepare for this very exam. Maybe there was a family emergency, one suggested. Or his back got worse, another whispered. You know, from when she pushed him. Jamal said nothing, staring at his phone hidden beneath his desk, willing another message from Marcus to appear. The last text had simply said, "Stuck in traffic. Not going to make it. Tell everyone good luck." At 9 a.m., Dean Wilson entered the room, surveying the students with a practiced eye before conferring quietly with Ms. Reynolds in the corner. Their hushed conversation carried snippets to the closest students. Scholarship requirements clearly state no exceptions, even for the scholarship students. Unfortunate, but rules must be enforced uniformly. When Dean Wilson left, Ms. Reynolds returned to her patrol with a renewed air of triumph. The message was clear: Marcus Washington would not be permitted to take the exam even if he arrived now. Thomas Williams, who had once mocked Marcus but had sought his help before the exam, glanced uneasily at Jamal. "That's messed up," he muttered when Ms. Reynolds was out of earshot. "He taught half of us the material." Jamal didn't respond, focusing instead on completing his essay question, the one Marcus had specifically prepared him for last night. The irony wasn't lost on him: he might pass this exam because of Marcus, while Marcus himself would fail due to circumstances beyond his control. Outside the classroom, Dean Wilson hesitated in the hallway, a troubled expression on his face. He had never particularly liked Ms. Reynolds' teaching methods, but she had seniority and powerful connections on the school board. With Dr. Walker scheduled to take over as principal next week, many things might change at Westridge Academy. Unfortunately, that would come too late for Marcus Washington. As the exam progressed, rumors began circulating through other classrooms about Marcus's absence. By lunchtime, when the AP Literature students emerged from 3 hours of intensive testing, the story had already morphed into various versions. Marcus chickened out because he knew Reynolds would fail him anyway. His scholarship got revoked yesterday, so he didn't bother showing up. He's protesting Reynolds' unfair treatment by boycotting her exam. Jamal corrected anyone who would listen, explaining about the elderly woman Marcus had stopped to help, but few seemed to believe such a simple act of kindness could have such devastating consequences. "That's just how it goes," one student commented with casual privilege. "Sometimes you have to look out for yourself first." But those who had benefited from Marcus's patient tutoring felt a gnawing discomfort at the injustice of it all. Some even approached Dean Wilson, asking if an exception could be made, if Marcus could be allowed to take the exam later. The dean listened politely but made no promises. By the time the final bell rang that afternoon, Marcus still hadn't arrived at school. Jamal gathered his friends' assignments from other classes and headed to the bus stop, dreading the conversation they would have. How do you console someone who just lost everything because they chose to be kind? Meanwhile, across town, Marcus sat on a park bench, staring at his phone where a dozen missed calls and messages waited. He couldn't bring himself to respond yet, not to Jamal's worried texts, not to his mother's cheerful encouragement, not to anyone. The weight of what had happened, what he had lost, pressed down on him until it was hard to breathe. Was it worth it? He whispered to himself, unsure of the answer. When Marcus finally arrived home, the apartment was empty. His mother wouldn't return from her shift until late evening, which came as a relief. He wasn't ready to tell her what had happened, how he had thrown away his scholarship, their sacrifices, his future at MIT, all because he had stopped to help a confused old woman find her way home. He dropped his backpack on the kitchen table and noticed a voicemail notification blinking on the landline. With a heavy sigh, he pressed play, expecting another automated reminder about an upcoming bill. Instead, a crisp, authoritative female voice filled the kitchen. "This message is for Marcus Washington. This is Dr. Eleanor Walker. I wanted to personally thank you for your assistance this morning and to discuss the situation regarding your missed examination. Please call me back at your earliest convenience." She left a number and ended with, "I look forward to speaking with you." Marcus stared at the answering machine, stunned. How had Dr. Walker gotten his home number? And what did she mean by, discuss the situation? There was nothing to discuss. He had missed the exam, which meant failing the class, which meant losing his scholarship. With nothing to lose, he dialed the number. Dr. Walker answered on the second ring. "Ah, Marcus. Thank you for returning my call so promptly. How did you get my number?" Marcus asked, foregoing pleasantries. "I have my resources," she replied cryptically. "More importantly, I want to apologize again for this morning's unfortunate timing. I understand you missed a critical examination." "Yes," Marcus said flatly. Ms. Reynolds' AP Literature Final. No makeups allowed. So I've been told, Dr. Walker said, an odd note in her voice. Tell me, Marcus, did you know who I was when you helped me this morning? The question caught him off guard. You told me your name was Dr. Walker. Yes, but did you make the connection? Did you know I was Dr. Eleanor Walker? Marcus frowned. The name had sounded vaguely familiar when she'd introduced herself, but in his rush to help and subsequent panic about the time, he hadn't placed it. Wait. Suddenly Dean Wilson's words from earlier that week came rushing back. Are you the Dr. Walker who's becoming the new principal at Westridge Academy? A warm chuckle came through the phone. Indeed I am. Though I wasn't supposed to begin officially until next week. I've been quietly observing the neighborhood and community before my formal introduction. Marcus sank into a kitchen chair, his mind spinning. He had helped, and subsequently missed his exam because of the incoming principal of his school. I don't understand, he managed. Why are you calling me? Because I believe in fairness, Marcus. And what happened to you today was anything but fair. You missed an essential examination because you chose to help someone in need, me, as it happens. Hope flickered tentatively in Marcus's chest. Does that mean, could I still take the exam? That's precisely what I want to discuss, Dr. Walker replied. But not over the phone. Could you meet me at Westridge Academy tomorrow morning? Say, 9 a.m. Marcus agreed, though uncertainty gnawed at him. Why the formality? Why not just tell him now if he could retake the exam? After hanging up, Marcus finally called Jamal, who answered immediately. Dude. Where have you been? I've been texting you all day. Marcus explained about Dr. Walker's call, his voice gaining animation as he spoke. Wait, Jamal interrupted. You're telling me the old lady you helped is actually the new principal? The one Wilson mentioned? That's some cosmic-level coincidence, man. I know, Marcus agreed. But why would she want to meet at school? Why not just tell me over the phone if I can retake the exam? Jamal was quiet for a moment. Maybe she wants to see Reynolds' face when she overrides her decision. I would. When Gloria Washington returned home that night, exhausted from her double shift, Marcus couldn't bring himself to share the whole story yet. He simply told her the exam had gone as expected and that he had a meeting with a school administrator the next day to discuss his final project. As he lay in bed that night, Marcus replayed the morning's events in his mind. Had Dr. Walker seemed genuinely confused, or was there something more to her accidental encounter with him? And what did tomorrow's meeting really hold? For the first time since missing the exam, Marcus allowed himself to feel a flicker of hope. Perhaps, just perhaps, his act of kindness hadn't cost him everything after all. Marcus arrived at Westridge Academy 15 minutes early, his stomach knotted with tension. The campus looked different on a Saturday, eerily quiet, with only a few cars in the faculty parking lot. He recognized Dean Wilson's sedan and, beside it, a sleek black car with government plates he hadn't seen before. The main administrative building was unlocked. As Marcus walked the polished hallways toward the principal's office, he heard raised voices. One belonged to Ms. Reynolds, her tone sharp with indignation. This is completely unprecedented. The examination policies are clear, and they apply to all students equally. Making an exception undermines the entire system. Another voice, male, likely Dean Wilson, responded more quietly, though Marcus couldn't make out the words. Then came a third voice, Dr. Walker's, no longer frail-sounding but commanding and precise. The system, Ms. Reynolds, is designed to evaluate knowledge and competence, not to punish acts of compassion. Marcus hesitated outside the door, his hand frozen before knocking. Should he interrupt? Wait. The decision was made for him when the door swung open, revealing Dean Wilson about to exit. Ah, Mr. Washington, he said, looking flustered. Right on time. Please, come in. The principal's office had been transformed overnight. Gone were the state hunting prints and leather-bound classics that had decorated the walls under the previous administration. In their place hung colorful artwork from various cultural traditions and framed academic journals with Dr. Walker's name prominently featured. Dr. Walker herself sat behind the desk, looking nothing like the confused elderly woman Marcus had helped yesterday. Though still small in stature, her posture was impeccable, her silver hair elegantly coiffed, and her wire-rimmed glasses firmly in place. She wore a tailored navy suit that radiated authority. Ms. Reynolds stood rigidly beside the desk, her thin lips pressed into a bloodless line. Several folders lay open before them, including what appeared to be Marcus's academic file. "Mr. Washington, thank you for joining us," Dr. Walker said warmly. "Please, take a seat." Marcus perched on the edge of a chair, acutely aware of Ms. Reynolds' hostile glare. "I believe some introductions are in order," Dr. Walker continued. "Though we met under rather unusual circumstances yesterday, allow me to formally introduce myself. I am Dr. Eleanor Walker, the new principal of Westridge Academy." "It's an honor to meet you officially, Dr. Walker," Marcus replied, unsure of the protocol for this bizarre situation. "The honor is mine," she said sincerely. "Not every day does one encounter such selflessness, especially when the personal cost is so high." Ms. Reynolds made a small, derisive sound. Dr. Walker's sharp gaze flicked to her momentarily before returning to Marcus. "I've been reviewing your academic record, Mr. Washington. Quite impressive. 4.2 GPA, perfect scores on standardized tests, glowing recommendations from most of your teachers." She emphasized the word "most" with a pointed look toward Ms. Reynolds. "Which makes your situation in AP literature particularly curious." Marcus shifted uncomfortably. "I've had some challenges in that class." "So I see," Dr. Walker nodded, lifting a paper from one of the folders. "Including an incident last month where you were physically removed from the classroom, resulting in a back injury that still causes you pain." Ms. Reynolds stepped forward. "That report is exaggerated. Mr. Washington has consistently demonstrated defiance and—" "I wasn't addressing you, Ms. Reynolds," Dr. Walker interrupted coolly. "But since you've chosen to speak, perhaps you can explain why Mr. Washington's test scores in your class are consistently among the highest, yet his overall grade remains perilously low due to participation points." The tension in the room was palpable. Dean Wilson looked as though he wished to be anywhere else. "Participation is a valid component of academic assessment," Ms. Reynolds insisted. "Mr. Washington's refusal to follow basic classroom procedures. Like sitting in a chair when he has a documented medical reason not to." Dr. Walker raised an eyebrow. Marcus watched this exchange in astonishment. No one had ever challenged Ms. Reynolds so directly before, certainly not on his behalf. Dr. Walker turned back to Marcus. "Now, regarding yesterday's examination. I understand you missed it because you were helping an elderly woman find her way home after she became disoriented." "Yes," Marcus confirmed. "Though I didn't realize the woman was you until later." Dr. Walker's eyes twinkled. "I must confess, I wasn't quite as confused as I appeared. Part of my approach as an educator is to understand a school community before formally stepping into a leadership role. I often observe incognito." Ms. Reynolds' eyes widened. "You mean this was some sort of test?" "Not intentionally, no," Dr. Walker replied. "I genuinely needed assistance yesterday morning. But it became an illuminating glimpse into the character of one of Westridge's scholarship students, the very type of student some on the faculty," another pointed look at Ms. Reynolds, "have suggested don't belong here." Marcus felt a surge of understanding. "You heard her." "In the hallway, after my meeting with Dean Wilson." Dr. Walker nodded. "Among other concerning comments that have reached my ears during my unofficial observations this past week." She stood up, her diminutive height somehow not diminishing her authority. "Ms. Reynolds, I've reviewed your grading patterns across different demographic groups. The disparities are troubling, to say the least." Ms. Reynolds blanched. "That's preposterous. I hold all students to the same high standards." "The data suggests otherwise," Dr. Walker cut in. "But that's a discussion for another time. Right now, we need to address Mr. Washington's examination." She turned to Marcus. You will be permitted to take the exam on Monday morning. Dean Wilson will administer it. That's completely against policy. Ms. Reynolds protested. If you start making exceptions. This isn't an exception, Dr. Walker stated firmly. This is a correction. Mr. Washington missed the examination while performing an act of community service, assisting the school's principal, no less. His absence was excused retroactively by me. Marcus felt relief wash over him, so profound he nearly missed Dr. Walker's next words. Additionally, I'll be conducting a thorough review of Ms. Reynolds' grading practices, particularly regarding minority and scholarship students. And Mr. Washington's previous assignments will be reassessed by an independent evaluator. Ms. Reynolds looked as though she might faint. You can't do that. I have tenure. I have rights. Indeed you do, Dr. Walker agreed. And due process will be followed. But make no mistake, Ms. Reynolds, the culture at Westridge Academy is changing, effective immediately. She turned to Dean Wilson. Please escort Ms. Reynolds out and ensure the examination materials are prepared for Monday. Then to Marcus, would you stay a moment longer, please? After they left, silence filled the office. Marcus found himself at a loss for words. I imagine you have questions, Dr. Walker said, returning to her seat. Several, Marcus admitted. But mainly, why? Why go to all this trouble for one student? Dr. Walker studied him thoughtfully. Because, Mr. Washington, education is not merely about what we learn from books, but what we learn from each other. Yesterday, you taught me something profound about character. You chose kindness over self-interest, even at great personal cost. That's a quality I value far more than perfect attendance or rigid adherence to rules. She leaned forward. Westridge Academy was founded to nurture excellence. Somewhere along the way, that mission became distorted, excellence confused with privilege, rigor with exclusion. I'm here to correct that imbalance, and students like you are precisely why. As Marcus left the office, he felt lighter than he had in months. Not just because he would get to take the exam after all, but because for the first time at Westridge Academy, someone in power had seen him, truly seen him, for who he was. Word of Saturday's confrontation spread through Westridge Academy like wildfire. By Monday morning, when Marcus arrived to take his rescheduled exam, the hallways buzzed with speculation. Students who had never spoken to him before nodded in recognition as he passed. Dean Wilson was waiting in an empty classroom, the sealed examination packet on the desk. You have 3 hours, Mr. Washington, he said formally, though a hint of newfound respect colored his tone. Dr. Walker has assured that this is the identical examination given on Friday, with no modifications. As Marcus settled at the desk, standing, with Dean Wilson's explicit permission, he felt an unusual calm. The material he had studied so diligently began to flow through his mind, connections forming effortlessly between texts, themes, and historical contexts. 3 hours later, he handed in his completed examination with quiet confidence. Mr. Washington, Dean Wilson said as Marcus gathered his belongings, I want to apologize for not addressing your situation with Ms. Reynolds more effectively. I should have recognized the pattern earlier. Marcus nodded, unsure how to respond to this unexpected acknowledgement. Dr. Walker has initiated a comprehensive review of our policies, the dean continued. Including how we support scholarship students. Your experience has been illuminating for the administration. Meanwhile, across campus, Ms. Reynolds faced her own reckoning. Dr. Walker had convened an emergency meeting of the school board, presenting evidence of systematic bias in Ms. Reynolds' grading patterns. The data was damning. Minority and scholarship students consistently received lower participation marks and harsher penalties for minor infractions, while wealthy white students benefited from generous curves and overlooked absences. This isn't just about one student or one incident, Dr. Walker explained to the board. This is about institutional patterns that undermine our educational mission. Ms. Reynolds' allies on the board attempted to defend her, citing her long service and academic credentials, but Dr. Walker was prepared. She presented testimonials from graduates who had succeeded despite Ms. Reynolds' treatment, not because of it. By Tuesday afternoon, the decision was announced: Ms. Reynolds would be placed on administrative leave pending a full investigation. More significantly, Westridge Academy would implement new training programs on unconscious bias and equity in education for all faculty and staff. When Marcus received his examination grade on Wednesday, a perfect score, independently verified by 2 external educators, he felt vindicated but not triumphant. The victory seemed hollow considering what it had taken to achieve it. Dr. Walker called him to her office that afternoon. "Congratulations on your exemplary performance, Mr. Washington," she said, gesturing to the chair across from her desk. "Though I'm not surprised." "Thank you," Marcus replied. "And thank you for the opportunity to take the exam." Dr. Walker waved away his gratitude. "I've been reviewing your overall academic record more thoroughly. Your interest in engineering is particularly noteworthy. Have you applied to any summer programs?" Marcus explained his financial constraints, the application fees and housing costs that made such opportunities inaccessible. Dr. Walker listened intently, taking notes. "Westridge has substantial endowment funds designated for exactly this purpose," she said when he finished. "Funds that, I've discovered, have been disproportionately allocated to certain students." Her tone made it clear which students she meant. "I'd like to recommend you for MIT's Advanced Engineering Summer Program," she continued. "With Westridge covering all associated costs. Would that interest you?" Marcus stared at her, momentarily speechless. Yes, that would interest me very much." "Excellent. Consider it done." She made another note before fixing him with her keen gaze. "There's one more matter. I'm establishing a student advisory council to provide perspective on the changes being implemented here. I'd like you to serve as its inaugural chair." "Me?" Marcus blinked in surprise. "Wouldn't someone with more connections be better suited?" "Connections aren't what Westridge needs right now, Mr. Washington. What we need is courage, integrity, and the willingness to stand up for what's right, qualities you've demonstrated amply." As news of these developments reached Gloria Washington, she insisted on meeting Dr. Walker personally. The 2 women spoke privately for over an hour, emerging with mutual respect and what appeared to be the beginning of a friendship. "That woman," Gloria told Marcus afterward, "is exactly what Westridge Academy has needed. Someone who sees value in who you are, not just where you come from." By week's end, the atmosphere at Westridge had subtly shifted. While some students from privileged families grumbled about lowered standards and special treatment, many others embraced the changes, recognizing the opportunity for genuine growth and learning. Thomas Williams, the quarterback who had once mocked Marcus, approached him in the cafeteria. "Hey," he said awkwardly. "I wanted to say, I was wrong about you. About a lot of things. And I was wondering if that study group might still be open for next semester." Marcus considered him thoughtfully before nodding. Knowledge isn't meant to be hoarded, remember? As Marcus boarded the bus home that Friday, he reflected on the extraordinary week. From the brink of losing everything to helping reshape the future of Westridge Academy, all because he had stopped to help someone in need. Dr. Walker had been right, things do happen for a reason. The MIT acceptance letter arrived on a sunny morning in late spring, along with an unprecedented full scholarship that would cover not just tuition but housing, meals, and even a stipend for books and supplies. Gloria Washington wept as she read it, her hands trembling with emotion. "Your father would have been so proud," she whispered, embracing her son. Marcus held her tightly, his own eyes moist. "We did it, Ma. Together." The final weeks at Westridge Academy unfolded in a flurry of activity. The Student Advisory Council, under Marcus's leadership, had already implemented several significant changes: a peer tutoring program that recognized teaching others as a valuable form of academic achievement, revised attendance policies that acknowledged health and family circumstances, and most importantly, a new system for evaluating teacher performance that included student feedback. Dr. Walker had proven to be everything she promised and more, a transformative force who saw potential where others had seen only problems. After the formal investigation concluded, Ms. Reynolds had chosen early retirement rather than face the board's disciplinary recommendations. Her departure sparked both relief and reflection among the faculty. "You've started something remarkable here," Dr. Walker told Marcus during their final one-on-one meeting. "A legacy that will continue long after you've moved on to MIT." "I just helped point out what was already broken," Marcus said modestly. "You're the one fixing it." Dr. Walker smiled. "Systems are changed by individuals making difficult choices, often at personal cost. Remember that at MIT and beyond. Your brilliance will open doors, but your character will define what you do once you walk through them." On graduation day, Marcus stood at the podium as class speaker, an honor traditionally reserved for the valedictorian but expanded this year to include a student who had demonstrated exceptional leadership and character, as nominated by faculty and peers alike. Looking out at the audience, his mother beaming in the front row, Jamal giving him a thumbs up, Dr. Walker nodding encouragingly, Marcus felt a profound sense of belonging that had eluded him for most of his time at Westridge. "Today marks not just an ending but a beginning," he began. "Not just for us as graduates, but for Westridge Academy itself. This year has taught us that true excellence isn't measured solely by test scores or college acceptances, but by how we treat one another. By whether we choose kindness when it's difficult, integrity when it's inconvenient, and courage when it's easier to remain silent." He paused, his gaze sweeping across his classmates, the privileged and the scholarship students, those who had always belonged and those who had fought to be included. "I came to Westridge believing I had to prove myself worthy of being here. What I've learned instead is that worthiness isn't something granted by an institution. It's something we carry within ourselves and recognize in others. And when we truly see each other, beyond assumptions, beyond prejudices, we all grow stronger." As he concluded his speech to thunderous applause, Marcus caught Dr. Walker's eye. The woman who had changed the course of his life with a chance encounter, or perhaps not such a chance encounter after all, nodded with unmistakable pride. Later, at the reception, Thomas Williams approached with his parents, wealthy donors whose name adorned the science building. "My folks wanted to meet you," Thomas said. "I told them about how you helped everyone prepare for finals, even after everything." Mr. Williams extended his hand. "Thomas will be at Boston University next year, not far from MIT. He mentioned you might continue those study sessions. We'd be happy to help with any cross-campus transportation." The gesture, simple yet significant, represented exactly the kind of bridge building that had once seemed impossible at Westridge. As the celebration wound down, Marcus found a quiet moment with Dr. Walker. "I've been wondering something," he admitted. "That morning we met, was it really a coincidence? Did you really get lost?" Dr. Walker's eyes twinkled. "Let's just say I believe in creating opportunities to observe character in action. Though I certainly didn't anticipate you missing your exam as a result." "I'd do it again," Marcus said without hesitation. "Even knowing what was at stake." "That," Dr. Walker replied, "is precisely why you're going to change the world, Marcus Washington. Not despite where you come from, but because of it." As Marcus and his mother walked to the bus stop one last time, Gloria suddenly laughed. "What?" Marcus asked, smiling at her unexpected mirth. "I was just thinking, all this happened because you stopped to help someone who looked like they needed it. Just like I've always taught you." She squeezed his hand. "Sometimes doing the right thing does pay off, even if not in the way we expect." Marcus looked back at Westridge Academy, the setting sun gilding its imposing facade. The building looked the same, but what happened inside had begun to transform, because one student had missed his final exam to help a frail woman, unknowing she was the new principal of his school. And in that simple act of kindness, both had found exactly what they needed, she, confirmation of the changes necessary at Westridge, he, the opportunity to be truly seen for his character, not just his circumstances. Sometimes, the most important tests in life aren't the ones we prepare for, but the ones that catch us by surprise, revealing not what we know, but who we are. Dear friend, our society often forces impossible choices upon those already fighting uphill battles. When systems of education and opportunity are built on bias rather than merit, a single missed exam can derail a promising future. This story reminds us that true excellence isn't measured by test scores or wealth, but by how we treat one another when nobody's watching, and sometimes, when the right people are. Remember, small acts of kindness may seem costly in the moment, but they reveal our true character and can change lives in unexpected ways. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and subscribe to support more content that celebrates compassion, courage, and the fight for educational equity in our communities.